The Power Four conferences are taking steps toward leaving the NCAA altogether, and that kind of rocks. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will start with the Power Four wanting to leave the NCAA, and there's a brand new step that's going to get us there. There's a new LLC put in place that has a CEO that is going to help captain those leagues as well as the rest of college athletics. We'll also get into the government just made a ruling, and they're going to give athletes pretty much as much eligibility as they want. The NCAA may actually give you 5 total years to play your sport in college, and that is not even counting if you played JUCO or D2. And then we'll finish with the SEC is getting scared. Spencer McLaughlin joins the show, brings up a quote talking about the Big 12, the SEC, their disparity, and how that conference is not very happy right now. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Leaving the NCAA is something that's probably a little bit overdue with major conferences. We have had discussions on this show. We've had discussions on squad shows about how really the biggest plus of having the NCAA here is paperwork. It's an overhead. You can have somebody who, when everything goes to hell in a handbasket and we need to sue an entity, you can sue the NCAA and not a conference and not a school. So the NCAA can take the brunt of that and fill out a bunch of paperwork. But now, guess who's being sued a lot and losing a lot? The NCAA. And they have no control over NIL. These are things that you and I have complained about for years. There is no control over NIL. There is no control over the transfer portal. It feels like kids can go play as many years as they want of college ball. And some are proponents of that, but there need to be, I think it's almost objective. There needs to be some sort of checks, balances, a way to play everything down the middle here where we can't go wild and kids are making more than their head coaches. That's the era of college football we're in, and the NCAA can't do anything to stop it. So why do we have the NCAA? I don't think we need too much longer. Ross Dellinger tweets, Power Four conferences this week took steps in creating a new entity to govern college sports rev share system. Sources have told him and Yahoo Sports. The entity, overseen by a CEO, is built around an enforcement arm to police cap violators, phony NIL deals, and tamperers. So the NCAA couldn't do it. They couldn't govern the one thing that they are built to govern. So the Power Four got together and said, hey, let's take action and create an LLC. Listen to this quote. During a 2-day summit in the nation's capital, a transition team charged with operationalizing concepts of the House settlement. So to make that in like 7-year-old terms, there was a House settlement where the NCAA lost a lot of money. A bunch of schools are going to lose a lot of money because of that. The reason they lost a lot of money is because they got sued over like basically compensation laws. Are student athletes who want to be paid by their schools? Are they, workers for these universities? And the United States government wants to make them workers. And the NCAA was hapless in this. Everyone got mad. And so now in D.C., there's a transition team. They inched closer to establishing a new structure to oversee, manage, and enforce the settlement-related athlete compensation systems for all NCAA Division I. That's a lot. That's a jargon again. Let me break it down for you. This LLC will be put in place to enforce how athletes are paid. NIL. The revenue sharing, where now every university, because the government said you can, has $22 million in pocket to pay their athletes every year. Now, where does that money come from? Still ticket sales, still merch sales. Like, you got to come up with that money on your own, and some universities cannot. Some Big 12 universities cannot. So that's where this is helping separate the SEC and the Big 10 from the Big 12 and the ACC. But here, the four conferences are coming together to say the NCAA can't do its damn job. So we're going to create an LLC with a CEO or executive director. This is a direct quote. It is centered on a new enforcement arm to police violators of the industry's new salary cap. Do you understand that we just use the word salary cap in relation to college sports. That's where we are. Quote finishes with, and is expected to feature revenue sharing policies and a corresponding penalty structure for violators. The NCAA created the Wild West that college athletics is today. And finally, the people who want the money, the people that deserve the money and who have gotten the money for a long time, these Power Four conferences said, we're done. We're done. Every decision you make, you get sued and you lose. And we cannot continue. We are now losing money out of our pockets because this organization had to settle with effectively the government so that we could all just stay alive. Hey, we don't need you to fill out paperwork for us anymore. We're just going to kind of create our own thing here. And these people are actually going to do their jobs. And there'll be checks and balances. There'll be limits to how much players can make. And we're going to monitor what they're making to ensure that this whole thing's fair. And then Linda Livingstone, the president at Baylor University, stands up and says, well, what about Title IX? We're going to figure that out, actually. We're going to have those conversations because the NCAA was like, oh, shoot, man, we had to settle. Everybody, you're going to lose a lot of money. Pay your student athletes $22 million. And immediately, a lot of presidents said, okay, cool. Title IX is like a government thing, and you're settling with the government. So can you tell us how the government wants us to handle Title IX? No one knew. I was like, oh, shoot, that's a good quote. We didn't even think about that. Gosh, dang it. Fine. We don't need you anymore. We don't really know what you do here. So we're gonna build a business that actually is a police arm. It's an enforcement. Builders of the framework that says transition team made up of 2 athletic directors from each of the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12. The 4 power leagues, who are defendants in the settlement, are the leading implementation of the agreement's most significant piece, that schools are permitted annually to share millions in revenue with athletes under a cap system beginning July 1. Awesome. Bye, NCAA. Thanks for nothing. This is the biggest step so far in just doing away with those 4 letters altogether because they can't get it right. They consistently get it wrong. And when I read this article from Ross Dellinger, that was the first thing I thought. Well, there goes those cats. Coming up, athletes have as much eligibility as they want. Why? Because the NCAA sucks at its job. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. I tell you what, I had just bought a new house, and now that the holidays are over, giving your home a little TLC, decluttering stuff, freshening things up is always worth it with Wayfair. Whether you're cleaning out or just want to give your space a new look, I'm looking at furniture, huge selection, all within my budget. Again, just bought a house, need to put furniture in it. I get free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. It was very easy to navigate. There's something for every style, every home. They make it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals, too. I need a new couch. My couch smells like dog. Wayfair's where I went. Your decor style, you pick these items, whatever you want. Go grab it. Wayfair, hassle-free delivery. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to Wayfair.com right now. It's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Student athletes now have as much eligibility as they want. I can't emphasize enough how bad the NCAA is just doing its job. Ross Dellinger tweets, a reminder that the NCAA is exploring a move to eliminate all waivers and most exceptions by permitting athletes to play 5 seasons, competition over 5 years. Where did this come from? Sam Ehrlich tweets a whole lot about a new case where a student athlete, I think this one was related to Wisconsin, a student athlete is trying to get more eligibility because he played at the D2 level. Now he's going to D1. And the case that he made was, hey, I had it so rough at D2, I couldn't make money in NIL the way you can in D1. If I go D1, now I am able to. But those years that I wasted in D2 to get here, I didn't make the money that I could have gotten or deserved. And somehow a judge was like, yep, cool. Give it to him. This is wild. Sam tweets, the judge seems to be picking at the waiver process more than anything, saying that requiring a school to sponsor a waiver request is anti-competitive, and that even if the plaintiff played in 2021, the situation under which he played give rise to what should be an exception. What is that situation? Where he played? It's basically saying that it's not fair you played in D2 because you couldn't make as much NIL money, so we're just going to kind of give you more eligibility in D1. The judge here is pointing right at the drastically increased ability to earn. This is a great direct quote. The judge is pointing right at the drastically increased ability to earn NIL money to show that Division I opportunities are just different. And the highlighted portion of a second screenshot here is bad news for the NCAA. That highlighted portion directly from the case reads, moreover, defendants' eligibility rules likely depress competition for roster spots and thus, listen to this, player NIL earnings by categorically excluding athletes after 4 seasons of competition when their marketability for NIL income is more likely than not to be at its apex. Oh, no. I'm not a law student. I didn't go to law school. I wanted to when I was a child, but realized that they take your soul away. Did you know that? So I can't break this down perfectly, but I get it. I get the gist here. I want to pick out some pieces of this. They just said, the law, the government just said that based on NIL earnings, you have excluded athletes who have played 4 years at, say, the D2 level and have a year left of eligibility with a red shirt. They're getting to go to D1, and they're now, according to the government, at their apex for NIL income and marketability. What's the apex? Is it Stanford? Is it Alabama? Is it Oklahoma State? Could you beat your apex of Villanova in basketball? They're saying JUCO, okay, and D2 and D3 opportunities are not good enough for you to be paid NIL money, so your eligibility shouldn't really count in fairness until you're in a D1 seat with an opportunity at your apex to make money in college sports. What are we doing? Again, I'm very simple. I got a journalism degree. I'm not here to read legal documents. I hate reading legal documents. I don't care to, but this kind of stuff, this is why guys are playing 7, 8, 9 years of college sports. And instead of looking at that and saying, hey, this could be a problem, we're going, yeah, man, I don't know. Bo Nix was there for a while. Let him have it. Yeah, man, Dylan Gabriel had 3 logos on his helmet at senior day and was in college for 8 years. Let him have it. Used to do it like Blake Bell. Felt like Blake Bell was in college forever. And that one guard who played for Kansas. But those guys actually played like 4 years of college ball. Even 5, I can understand, because the redshirt deal. And you're like, okay, cool. We're redshirting this kid. He was a really good prospect, a 3 or a 4-star. We're excited about his progression at our university. All likelihood, he won't be at your university in 4 years. And then what that kid's going to do is go to a judge, go to court. Let me make this statement. Let me finish that statement, and then I'll add an addendum. I'm using a lot of big words today. What that kid's going to do is he's going to go to court and say, hey, my first 2 years, one of them I was redshirted and the other one I didn't play. My NIL opportunities, NIL was on at its apex. And a judge will say, you're right, it wasn't, buddy. You get those 2 years back. Congratulations. Stay in college as long as you want. But maybe it's not the kids. I had an epiphany. Another big word. Had an epiphany. It's not the kids. It's some sleazebag lawyer. It's some sleaze, some of the sleaziest people in the game right now. Not everyone. Some of the sleaziest in the game are NIL agents. I struggle to even call them agents. They're normal people. You don't have to have a license. You just be like, hey, kid, want me to call McDonald's on your behalf, get you $1 million deal? I'll take 20%. And the 19-year-old says yes. The sleazebags are the agents and the lawyers getting involved in this. Because that lawyer goes to a D2 kid and is like, hey, your dad died while you were in school and you didn't make a lot of NIL money, if any at all. So we can just like kind of sue over that and get you some more years at the D1 level. So now you can make more NIL. And now that it's a job Now that with this new revenue sharing deal, universities are going to pay their student athletes like, hi, here's your W-2 at the end of the year. Maybe it's 1099. That would suck. Now that that's happening, it's going to be even worse. You're going to go to the government's going to be like, yeah, man, well, it's a job now. You can't restrict people from having a job because they're too old or they've worked at the job too long. So, yeah, let them stay. Is the NFL shaking right now because college athletes are about to be employees of their universities and the United States government is going to say, hey, in response to that, you kind of got to let them be employees as long as they don't get fired, as long as they don't quit or get laid off? Who out there is going to be a 10-year college athlete? Somebody, as good as NIL is. And now you could just keep making the case of, well, I get an NIL deal on the table next year for $10 million. My deal last year was $1 million. I'm now at my apex for marketability. Could you please give me this extra year back? And by gosh, they're going to say yes. That's the precedent that's been set. Did any of this make sense to you? Did any of this make sense to you? I tried. There were big words and a court document. I read it so many times. It's like, I'm going to explain it to the people, and I'm going to explain it real good. And you're all going to get it. And I don't know. I don't know if I landed the plane. I don't know if I understand all of it. But I'm trying. I'm trying hard. No, this show's clickbait. No. I read court documents for this stuff. Coming up, the SEC is getting very scared. Shane Beamer just said some really stupid stuff, and it pertains to the Big 12. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. That's where I went, Super Bowl Sunday, and I said, FanDuel, here are my finest $200 on the Philadelphia Eagles to win. And FanDuel said, we'll give you $200 right back because the Eagles won. When the game tips off now in the NBA, or college basketball, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, it's right there to catch you. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine them into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The SEC back at it again with the superiority complex. Now, I've been a proponent of SEC bias for most of my life, but when I get new information, my opinion changes, hence why we shall discuss this with Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. Here's what Shane Beamer had to say. Drake, who has not heard this quote, he is hearing this for the first time, the very first time. Shane Beamer said, quote, look, I've got great respect for other conferences, a great thing to start a sentence off with before you say we're just better than all of you, no matter what. I've been to other conferences. I've been a part of the ACC. I've been a part of the Big 12. There's no question that there's good football everywhere. But when you just talk about the teams in this league and the teams you play week in and week out, it's different. And you look at the NFL draft every single year. It's 20 straight years that the SEC has led the nation in draft picks. People can say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it does. We're playing the best players in the country. I've been a part of other leagues where you go into a stadium and there are 20,000 people in the stands and you're in a Power 4 conference. Not in this conference. Every road venue you go to, you're playing in front of 70, 80, 90, 100,000 people every single Saturday, end quote. Yeah, it sounds like we're just falling right back into the old habits, right? Drake is like, well, you know, we're the SEC, so we have to just automatically be better, right? And I can appreciate that he's coached in other conferences, and I think he does believe at some level there's good football elsewhere. It's just not good enough to play with the SEC, despite that being contrary to, I don't know, everything we saw play out in the 2024 college football season. Sure, should we just take it at face value and say, yeah, give the SEC as many auto bids as they want?
Stupid. Why did I agree to do this with you? It just makes me mad.
I don't know.
Every time I hear things, it just makes me angry. I had a boss one time, not even a boss, a coworker who thought he was my boss. And when I would open a radio show,
not me, just to be clear,
I would open a radio show that I was doing and say, this is the number one Baylor radio show in sports or something like that. Something along those lines. It's like anyone who tells you they're number one probably isn't number one. Anybody who has to go in there and say, hey, we're the best ever. And look, the only exception to that is Locked On Big 12, America's #1 Big 12 podcast. Everybody else who has to continue to tout themselves in their resume is doing it because one reason, that's because they have a deficiency somewhere they want you to ignore. That deficiency is being losses to Michigan from Alabama, South Carolina losing to Illinois. And guess who coaches South Carolina? The guy who sang this quote. How many draft picks has Illinois had compared to South Carolina the last 20 years? Probably less. Probably. Like South Carolina's had a lot more than Illinois, no doubt. Who won the actual head-to-head football matchup? What about Georgia and Notre Dame? Who's a better football team? Well, on paper, the Georgia Bulldogs. Who won that game on paper? The Georgia Bulldogs. Who won it when they actually played? Actually, that was Notre Dame. Tennessee losing to Ohio State, getting blown out. LSU losing to a bad USC team. Oklahoma State beating the middle of the road, like kind of bottom third team in the SEC. And guess what? Yes, Spencer?
USC went 2-0 against the SEC this year.
They did. They also beat Texas A&M, who people wanted in the college football playoff until like 2 or 3 weeks left in the season. I have been to SEC venues in football, growing up an Arkansas Razorback fan, where I thought, there are more LSU fans here than Arkansas fans. It is just not like fundamentally false, wrong, clickbait, big title, Locked On Big 12 style, everything Shane Beamer said in that little blurb that you gave me. The SEC is good, no doubt. No one's trying to take it away from you. The SEC is the best conference in college football. Guess what? We're actually giving it to you in the form of money. We're giving you more money. But now you have to come to a podium and tell me that we're so good, we're so bad. You know who does this? Head coaches whose teams won't make the NCAA tournament. That's who does this. They read this thing with their SID printed off at a podium and say, well, we have 3 quad 1 wins, and this team that's supposed to be automatic doesn't. That's who does this, not the big bad SEC. It feels as though they think the foundation is cracking a bit because they continue to tell us how good they are.
Yeah, it's giving some shades, the whole Lane Kiffin thing on Twitter of that and this and other quotes you see in here. It's giving me shades of Hugh Jackson as the Browns head coach. You got to remind people that you're the head coach. Like, maybe you shouldn't be. But we're not even trying. You and I both agree, Drake, if we're going top to bottom, number of conference championship capable teams with number of teams that can make a playoff run, yeah, I'll give you the SEC. But the point that I'm trying to articulate is the benefit of the doubt that has been given to this conference deservedly for the last 20 plus years. Based on what we have seen in the last couple of years in the new era of college football, it doesn't exist at the same level. You do not get to claim the same level. Well, we have more players going to the NFL draft. That's great. That's one of the reasons I'd still say, yeah, SEC is probably still the best league, but I don't look at them as the behemoth they used to be. South Carolina is a great example. And look, I also understand the other side of this argument that people will come at us with, which is, well, coaches are, of course, going to support their team and their conference and do all these sorts of things. That's good and fine. But that means that someone else needs to be there to present the other side of the argument, hence why we are having this discussion. Because going out there and saying, this piece was in South Carolina Gamecocks on SI from an interview that Shane Beamer did on 3, by the way. I forgot to mention that earlier. But I just look at stuff like this and say, man, how many NFL guys are on that South Carolina roster this past year compared to Illinois? What's the number, Drake? I mean, you've got some big-time recruits. Kennard and Dylan Stewart and Nick Harbor is a physical freak.
Like 5-1. We're probably talking 5-1 here.
Yeah, you probably are. I mean, long-term NFL draft prospects, Lenore Sellers probably has a better shot than Luke Altmaier does. Yeah. And I think Altmaier's a really solid player, but Sellers is a better athlete overall. He's probably got a slightly bigger arm, but Illinois won the football game. And so I just don't want us to slip back into this realm of hypotheticals. The SEC would do this team would do that. No, I watched this play out on the field. You can sell me on we've got more NFL guys we recruit at a higher level. That's an objective fact. But you know what else is objective? You lost a bunch of games on the field. The almighty SEC lost to Navy, lost to Illinois, lost to Michigan, lost to USC. In the same bowl season. I'm not buying this stuff when anyone from the SEC, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's Paul Feinbaum or Greg Sankey or an SEC head coach, when this stuff puts out there, I just keep getting more annoyed at it because they're trying they're trying to sell me something that I know is not worth buying.
Who won the national championship this year?
Ohio State.
Big Ten. Last season?
Michigan.
Big Ten. Do you hear any Big Ten coaches getting on the podium saying, "Oh, look at us. We're the Big Ten."
That's a great point.
We're so different over here. We're really good at it. I've coached all across the country, and all of our venues are so... No, they're just winning national championships, man. That's just kind of what they're doing instead. And that seems like a little bit more fun than the SID hands you the paper and you're West Virginia going, well, we had the 32nd best strength of schedule in the country. And that's what the SEC is doing right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great point on the Big Ten. I can't remember the last time a coach felt the need to go out there and defend.
Not even a losing coach. Not even a guy who's like getting his, like, even Matt Rule has every right to be like, the Big Ten's the toughest conference in college football. That's why it's taking you a little bit to build here. He won't even do that. He's just like, yeah, man, it's college football.
Yeah. It just reeks of insecurity. And I don't really know why. It's not as if these guys are not set financially. It's not as if they're not able to recruit anymore.
My last girlfriend said about me, too. What is that? Am I in the SEC? Am I in the SEC?
Drake 12, SEC, it's all one and the same. Oh, did I say that out loud? My goodness. Drake 12.